Corey Seager is hurt, and the Brewers promoted Sal Frelick. Let's discuss on Fantasy Baseball today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Monday, July 24th. I am Frank Sanford, joined by Scott White. And let's start things off with the unfortunate news. Corey Seager placed on the IL this weekend with a sprained right thumb. The hope is that he won't miss more than 2 weeks, but obviously this is a huge loss for fantasy. How can we replace him this week? I've got 3 names in shallower league, Scott. CJ Abrams, I know he's one of your sleeper hitters this week. He had another massive weekend. Tim Anderson, hitting much better here in the second half. He's down to 71% rostered. And Orlando Arcia has homered in 3 of his last 6 games. Scott, how would you rank those names for this week? Abrams, Anderson, and Arcia.
Well, I mean, if Abrams is among my 10 sleeper hitters for this week, I think he has to be number 1, and it probably would be anyway because of the speed he's suddenly learned to tap into and hitting for some power recently too. Tim Anderson, I'll put number 2 because I like the White Sox matchup more than the Braves. The Braves are scheduled for only 5 games this week, but it's close between those two. If he is available in an even shallower league, Ha-Seong Kim. He's 84% rostered on CBS, but I saw he's out there in a couple of my leagues, and he has, I think, emerged as somebody who you might keep in your lineup even after Seager returns, considering he's eligible at second and third base as well, providing speed and power and batting leadoff for the Padres much of the time. He's up to more head-to-head points per game this season than Dansby Swanson.
Good recommendation there in Ha-Seong Kim. If you're just looking for a middle infielder, it doesn't necessarily have to be a shortstop. 2 other names on Scott's sleeper hitters list, Edouard Julien and Wilmer Flores for this upcoming week. The Brewers promoted their outfield prospect Sal Frelick, who is a 23-year-old former first-round pick from back in 2021. The numbers this season in the minors, Scott, were underwhelming. I know he's dealt with some injuries this year, Sal Frelick has. Last year in the minors, he hit .331 with 11 home runs and 24 steals, 38% rostered, widely available. What size leagues do you think we should be looking to add Sal Frelick?
Well, real quick, you said he hit .331 last year. That's true. .365 in 46 games after coming up to AAA. So, The weirder thing for him is how poorly he's performed this year coming back from thumb surgeries. Kind of surprised he got called up when he did, but hey, he has 4 hits already in 2 games. That's basically what Sal Frelick does. He gets hits of a non-home run variety. He's fast enough to steal bases. How much he provides remains to be seen. I think it's a very similar profile to Steven Kwan. So the question is Frelick going to be a little bit worse than Kwan, maybe a little bit better than Kwan? Because if it's the former, a little bit worse, he's fringy. If he's better, then he's close to must start. For now, based on what he's done at AAA, I would probably leave Sal Frelick for 5 outfielder leagues, where obviously you need all the decent outfielders you can get. 3 outfielder leagues, what's a fringy outfielder in a 3 outfielder league? It's probably somebody like Marcell Ozuna, Brian De La Cruz, that range. I think I'd prefer both of those guys to Sal Frelick. Doesn't mean Frelick couldn't get hot and change the math there, but I'm not rushing out to add him in 3 outfielder leagues.
One name we talked a lot about recently, Scott, Alex Kirilloff. Who would you rather have, Frelick or Kirilloff?
If it's just a 1-week situation, Kirilloff. He is a hot hand play, and I prefer the Twins matchups this week. If you're asking me to commit to one rest of season, I'm going to say Frelick because Kirilloff, he has a very high line drive rate, so that's good. That might be what saves him ultimately. But even when he homers, it's just not hit very hard. It's hit between 100 and 102 miles per hour typically, and most of his home runs have been to the opposite field. So I'm not really sure if the power profile is going to hold up at the major league level. He might have to really depend on that line drive rate to be effective. And he'll need to start consistently, which until very recently he hadn't been doing for the Twins.
Let's wrap up with 3 pitchers, Scott, talented pitchers who have been getting hit hard recently. Joe Ryan, over his last 5 starts, has a 7.30 ERA and a 1.58 whip. Mitch Keller last 11 starts, 5.51 ERA and a 1.41 whip. And then Shohei Ohtani over his last 3 starts, 7.71 ERA, 1.59 whip. Are you actually concerned? Would you be looking to bench any of these names, Scott? Ohtani, the pitcher, Mitch Keller, and Joe Ryan.
I mean, if you could start Ohtani a pitcher without losing him a hitter, then I'd still be fine with it. He has the easiest explanation. His struggles coincide with a blister he suffered, and it may be affecting him a little, but he's still getting a lot of strikeouts. The other two are trickier. Joe Ryan, 11 of his 19 home runs this year have come during that 5-start stretch, and he's a fly ball pitcher, an extreme fly ball pitcher. It's both a blessing and a curse. And we're seeing the bad side of it recently. I do think he'll come out of it and be fine, but you're taking your lumps for now. Keller's probably the most concerning of all, and I think I think probably he performed over his head early on, but he's kind of performing under his head right now, because in this most recent start, he at least got 15 swinging strikes. He hadn't been getting any swinging strikes at all recently, so that's an encouraging sign. He allowed 3 home runs, did Keller, but he's not going to do that very often. I think it was a step in the right direction, but you are going to see some inconsistency with him moving forward. So I'd play the matchups with both Ryan and Keller for right now. More likely to start Ryan between the two, though.
All right, for more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Odyssey app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.